Hello, Real Charlie back again with you for part 2 of a 5-part series where I am going through my personal disc collection, DVD, Blu-ray, and a couple of 4K as well. So let's just jump into it. Today we're going to be doing the C's through the I's, and I will move out my amazing disco ball snow globe, and we will focus in on the discs. So first up is Spike Lee's Crooklyn, which recently came out on Blu-ray. A number of Spike Lee films were released on Blu-ray in 2020 through Kino Lorber Studio Classics. Crooklyn is my absolute favorite Spike Lee, mainly because it really depicts my childhood and the music from my childhood, and I absolutely love it. The next one after that is Eton Fox, which is an Israeli filmmaker who I adore. A lighter entry from him, something called Cupcakes. So if you have watched some Eton Fox films and they were really heavy, you might want to check this out because this is actually a really fun and frothy sort of take on filmmaking. After that, we've got the Hollywood classic, The Day After Tomorrow. Hollywood Takes on Climate Change. It's one of my favorite big action-y sort of films with Jake Gyllenhaal and Dennis Quaid. Lots of fun. From there, we head into Dick. I love comedy. I have a really hard time finding things that are funny to me because comedy is so subjective. But this is an absolute hysterical film starring Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst, where they play young teenage girls who get embedded in the Nixon administration and basically are the informants who become Deep Throat. It's just very, very funny. After that, we have another Susan Dey film. This one reunited her with Harry Hamlin from LA Law. This is a sci-fi thriller called Disappearance, which was a TV film. From there, we have a really great lesbian indie film called Do I Love You from Lisa Gornick. Lisa Gornick is a great filmmaker who's done a number of films. And Do I Love You I've decided to own because I really just adore the film. From there, we've got the DVD version from Arrow Video of Donnie Darko, which is one of my favorite indie sort of indescribable films from this time period, from the early 2000s. Donnie Darko actually takes place in the 80s, and it has a phenomenal soundtrack as well. And then from there, my beautiful Blu-ray collection of Downton Abbey television, which I absolutely love and watch over and over and over and over again. I can't get enough of Downton Abbey. After the film came out, I went ahead and bought the Blu-ray version of the film as well, so I have that. And from there, another Susan Dey film, this time with Susan Dey, is starring with Tom Hulce and Michael Bowen from a very early, mid-80s indie film called Echo Park, which is one of my favorite Susan Dey films. After that, we've got Edge of 17. There's been a more recent film called Edge of 17. This is not that. It's a film by David Morton, and it's really an incredible coming out film. Again, it's a more modern film that takes place back in the early 80s with a great soundtrack, and Leah Delaria's in it. After that, a really silly and funny Irish film called An Everlasting Peace, which just cracks me up every time I watch it. Another Derek Jarman film, which I've talked about Derek Jarman before. We have a number of Jarman films in this batch right today. Edward II is the first of those, one of my favorite films. After that, Eve's Bayou, which is a great Casey Lemons film, starring a lot of really great African-American artists and actors, including Diane Carroll in just an indescribable role for her. It's just atmospheric and fun and really, really good. After that, Todd Haynes' masterpiece, Far From Heaven, I have on Blu-ray from Kino as well. There's not much for me to say about that, except it's one of my absolute favorite films of all time. Must see for anyone interested in great filmmaking, and it's also an homage to Douglas Sirk as well. After that, Barbra Streisand's amazing Funny Girl on Blu-ray. Again, not much to say about that other than watch it. It's brilliant. It's genius. From there, we look at another Jarman film, The Garden, which is a very experimental film, beautifully done with a lot of Christian iconography, gay rights, and it's just really, really good film. And then from there, we go into Susan Seidelman, who did Desperately Seeking Susan, her adaptation of Gowdy Afternoon, which is an incredible adaptation of a mystery book. It's really fun. It's got a lot of lesbian and trans characters in it, and a lot of sort of what today we would call gender fluid characters. It's a lot of fun, and it's has that same sort of vibe that Desperately Seeking Susan does, sort of a whodunit, and a mystery within a mystery. After that, Glitterbox is a 4-part Derek Jarman film pack, which I wish would come out on Blu-ray, but I have the DVD of it. It's 4 of his films: Caravaggio, Wittgenstein, The Angelic Conversation, and Blue. The last 2 I have seen recently and reviewed and absolutely adore. Blue is his last film that he did, which is just heartbreaking. It's just a blue screen with voiceover from his diaries and other things that he's written. And it's just really, really stunning and incredible, done right before he died of AIDS. After that, we have Gods and Monsters, which is the absolute classic, starring Ian McKellen, based on the book Father of Frankenstein from novelist Christopher Brand. I just adore this film and think it's really a modern classic. From there, we've got the Blu-ray of God's Own Country. Francis Lee put out this film a couple of years ago, and I just think it was a really overlooked film. It's a gorgeous film about a young, rural gay man in Great Britain who finds another man to fall in love with, and it actually stars Josh O'Connor, who plays Charles on The Crown. So if you want to see some of his earlier work, he's really incredible in this. From there, we've got the Arrow release of Gosford Park. Gosford Park is an Altman film, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's a mystery within a mystery, and it's very funny, and also sort of a prelude to Downton Abbey, since Julian Fellowes wrote the screenplay and won an Oscar for it. From there, I have the original Hairspray, which is the Divine and Ricky Lake version of Hairspray, which is the only Hairspray that I really love watching. And I adore this John Waters film. I think it's spot on and just amazing. After that, we've got a really interesting indie film called Hard Pill about the LGBT community. The question is, if there was a pill to make you straight, would you take it? And this is a really fascinating indie film as far as I'm concerned. And then after that, we've got Heartbeats, which is one of Xavier Dolan's earlier films, his second film. Really fun, really gorgeously filmed and edited. And it's all about sort of that early adulthood angst of falling for people and having a lot of unrequited love and things like that. After that, we've got Cate Blanchett and Giovanni Ribisi in Heaven, which is Tom Tykwer's film, German director Tom Tykwer. This is post Run Lola Run and also post Princess and the Warrior. And just an absolutely glorious, beautiful film, early Cate Blanchett and early Giovanni Ribisi. From there, we have the Criterion Blu-ray of The Heiress, starring Olivia de Havilland and Montgomery Clift. And it's just one of my absolute all-time favorite films. Absolutely gorgeous, classic film, must see. After that, we've got Ferzan Ostepec's His Secret Life, which is a great film from a European director who is often overlooked. And I just love this film. It's about community, and it's about lost love, and it's about sexual identity, and a lot of things all sort of mixed up together into like a delicious film. From there, we have a copy of The History Boys, which is actually my partner and buddy's favorite, one of his favorite films. So I have a copy of it in my collection. And then from there, we get into a number of Alfred Hitchcock sets. I've actually got 3 sets here. So the first set that we're going to look at is the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection, which is actually the brand new collection on 4K. This is one of the few things I have on 4K. It's incredible. It's Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. And I have watched these films over and over again over the years, but seeing them in 4K just brings these films to life like nothing else. So it's really, really fantastic. After that, I have the Blu-ray version of Alfred Hitchcock's The Masterpiece Collection, which I covet and adore. It has a large amount of films in it. It has The Trouble with Harry, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, The Birds, Marnie, Torn Curtain, Topaz, Frenzy, and Family Plot, as well as, Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, Rope, and Rear Window. Shadow of a Doubt and Rope are two of my favorite films. And yeah, that's it. And then after that, I've got a 3-part Hitchcock, the red box there. And this is called Alfred Hitchcock, The Classic Collection. There's a lot of confusion over naming these things, but this is also called The Classic Collection. This is a 3-part Blu-ray, Notorious, Rebecca, and Spellbound, 3 really great, and obviously classic Hitchcock films. After that, we get into the controversial Holiday Inn, Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn, which was a prequel to White Christmas. This is controversial because there's a huge blackface number in this. So watching this, you have to be aware of that and sort of look at this from the lens of film history. A lot of great dance and performance numbers in this because it's about a man who decides to leave New York City and go and buys an inn in New England, and he converts it into what he calls Holiday Inn, where he only opens it up about, 12 times a year for each holiday each month. So it's a fun movie, which is, it's just unfortunate that it's sort of marred by the blackface, but worth looking at in the context of how that fits into film history and how it tarnishes really great films. After that, I've got Hollywood Jatem, which is a favorite indie film of mine. It's a gay male indie film. It takes place in Los Angeles. It's a French guy who comes over looking for fame and fortune. And it's got a really great sort of indie, gritty Christmas theme to it at one point in the movie, which I absolutely love. From there, we've got The Hours, which is an adaptation of Michael Cunningham's book, The Triptych with Nicole Kidman and Julianne Moore. And it's just a beautiful film. From there, Criterion's Blu-ray version of Howard's End, the Merchant Ivory film that I love, and 2 more after that. A documentary, How to Survive a Plague, which is the documentary of ACT UP New York City during the 80s and 90s. And I actually have a very short walkthrough at the 59-minute mark of this film. I was at a demo in Kennebunkport in 91, I believe, at Bush One's summer home, and I'm in a very quick frame of that. So that's a lot of fun and a really essential film if you want to know more about the history of AIDS activism in the United States and particularly in New York City. And then finally, I'm ending with The Eyes of Alfred Hitchcock's I Confess. More of a minor film for him, but it was shot in Quebec City, which there's not a lot of films shot in Quebec City, so that's fun. The Chateau Frontenac, one of the big mansion resorts, has a great prominent area in there. And then, of course, Montgomery Clift stars as a priest, so what's not to love about Montgomery Clift in a cassock? So those are my picks, and those are the films that I absolutely love to have in my collection from the late C's into the I's. So stay tuned for parts 3 through 5, and thank you so much for listening to this version for Real Charlie. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.